Welcome to the Business Credit and Financing Show. Each week, we talk about the growth strategies that matter most to entrepreneurs. And now, to introduce the host of our show, financial expert and award-winning author, Ty Crandall.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in today. Today, we're diving into a really interesting topic that we've never discussed before, and it has to do with something that's vital to all of us, which is water. And with us today is Riggs Eckelberry. Now, Riggs actually doesn't look like a bomb thrower, and yet he's driving disruption of a trillion-dollar industry that has fallen behind the times and is affecting the health of millions of us across the globe. In the United States, we typically kind of think our government has this handled, but what you're saying is that maybe that's the case, or, but not doing a very good job.
You know, I grew up at a time when mainframes were king, and you reserved time on the mainframe, and you had to show up at 8 a.m. for your 1 hour on the mainframe, and that was considered efficient for the mainframe, not for you. So then it moved in the 80s, as I was in the industry at the time, towards the edge, and now people had their own computers, theoretically less efficient. That computer most of the day isn't doing much, but it's 100% there for you. So it flipped the service model from servicing the big high priest central system to servicing you and me. That happened all over the place. And it was happening in energy big time with the rise of the microgrid and so forth. In energy, as a great example, the central grid is really dumb, and it can only do electricity one direction. It's not a two-way system, and it never will be. And so we're building microgrids to kind of patch around it and just use the central thing as a trunk. Well, similar thing in water. What we're able to do in water is, hey, I'm treating the water, I might as well reuse it. Hey.
Well, you say some things that I'm not familiar with, like you talk about instant infrastructure. So what is that?
Well, instant infrastructure is basically, we're accustomed to, well, let me give you a perfect example. Miami-Dade has 100,000 septic tanks. Why? Because developers in Florida just went ahead and rolled out, housing tracts without any kind of sewage infrastructure. Now, as the water table rises, all those septic tanks are failing, and the county wants to spend $6 billion on putting sewage lines out to every one of those. Small problem. Number one, where's the $6 billion? Number two, it's going to take 20 years. And number three, do you really want those streets ripped up for the entire 20 years? No. Instead, you can put self-sufficient units at each one of those homes for 1/10 of the price, not disrupt anything, and have it happen much faster. That's instant infrastructure.
Why is this something you think makes a lot of sense for entrepreneurs to invest in?
Well, first of all, there's two things that entrepreneurs can invest in. Number one is, of course, the people building the marketplace ourselves. And in other words, the first investment that Airbnb had was not in the units, it was in Airbnb itself, right? So Ashton Kutcher in 2009 was part of a group that invested $7.2 million in Airbnb and got 10% of it. Pretty good deal. They got about 50,000% return on their money. The point is that the first investment in Airbnb was not in a B&B, it was in the people building the marketplace. So that's number one, is we have a corporate bond program that good accredited investors can get into, and just go to Origin Clear, there's a big red banner, plain as day. Number two is you can eventually, as we sort out all the regulatory issues, you'll be able to invest by looking in the listings, and it's just like Zillow, and this is interesting, right price point, and I kind of like a 200-home subdivision in Alpharetta, Georgia, that wants to build off the grid, and they need to have a reflush system that'll also water the golf course, and it's $350,000, and it's syndicated, so all you have to do $75,000. Okay, I'm in. Simple. Here's the deal: the stock market is insane. There is a dollar crash coming. The dollar will suffer the consequences of $20-30 trillion being given away. And we are looking at the need for people to find shelter. The shelter will be in cash generating assets. Goldman Sachs has told us that water is the petroleum of the 21st century. So we like to say water is the new gold only because, A, stable asset. It's not really affected by economy because you're going to have to treat the water no matter what. So, and it's a tangible asset. It's for real. It's there. It's a lot like gold in that sense. And it's hard to make more. You can make more water, but it costs money to do it. So again, it's just like mining for gold. It has a lot of similarities, but it has more value than gold because it's literally life. And so that's what's interesting about it to us.
What do you think is going to be in that marketplace?
We're an important player in terms of making sure this new water marketplace, and you look back on this interview and there was a water marketplace being talked about in July of 2020. And the CEO told us that it was COVID that made it happen, because we found ourselves January 29th, when all hell started breaking loose with Wuhan. We went, world's changed. And we had to think about a way to take all these chronic problems and resolve them in real time. We've worked very hard, and I'm proud of the work so far.
How are investors in making a return, making their money?
Well, it's a classic rent roll. So depending on the duration, some end users want a very short-term thing, just solve my problem for the time being. Others want a long-term thing. So we're not wedded to any given model, but it goes all the way from the rent-to-center, I'll rent you a TV model, all the way to a lease or lease purchase. The financial instruments are pretty flexible, and they're all out there already. We're not reinventing the wheel for the financial instruments. All we're doing is applying them to this. But the key is that you as an investor need to get that Section 179 first year accelerated depreciation. You invest $50,000, you get $50,000 tax credit year one. And that spices up the returns beautifully. Do it now while we know that the current administration is doing it, because who knows about the next one. And then there's a great, ROI along the way, and it's secured. It's your machine. That's key.
I love what you're doing. I mean, congratulations on your success, Riggs. I think you're solving a massive problem. And as we do this interview, I think about so many things. Like, I think about stories that I've heard where people are defecating outside their homes, et cetera. And then all the illnesses that's caused. I mean, there's so much death in this world that's caused by the problem you are trying to solve. So just hats off to you and Origin Clear for everything you guys are doing. I mean, you're really making a big impact in this world.
Ty, thank you. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. We'll get right back to work.